Three generations were dying at the same time. 78-year-old grandmother from cancer, 35-year-old mother from poverty, and 6-year-old granddaughter from a mysterious illness. When Elvis saw this family, he didn't just save their lives, he gave them hope for a new generation. It was November 8, 1974, and the first winter snow was falling on Memphis when Elvis Presley received a letter that would change everything he thought he knew about family, legacy, and the power of compassion. The letter was written in crayon by a 6-year-old girl named Emma Johnson, and what she told Elvis in that innocent handwriting would lead to one of the most remarkable rescue stories in his entire life. Emma Johnson lived with her grandmother Ruby Mae and her mother Linda in a tiny, run-down house in one of Memphis's poorest neighborhoods. The house had holes in the roof, no heating system, and water that only worked sporadically. But despite these hardships, the three generations of women had created a bond of love and resilience that sustained them through the darkest times. Ruby Mae Johnson was 78 years old and had been fighting lung cancer for 8 months. She had worked as a seamstress her entire life, supporting her family through the Depression, World War II, and the Civil Rights era. Even as cancer ravaged her body, she maintained her dignity and strength, refusing to let her pain show in front of her granddaughter. But privately, she knew her time was running short. Linda Johnson, Ruby Mae's daughter, was 35 and had been struggling as a single mother since Emma's father abandoned them when Emma was just 2 years old. Linda worked 3 jobs: cleaning offices at night, working at a laundromat during the day, and babysitting neighborhood children on weekends. Despite working nearly 80 hours a week, she could barely afford rent, utilities, and food for her family. But what worried Linda most wasn't their financial situation, it was Emma's health. Her 6-year-old daughter had been getting progressively weaker over the past few months. Emma was small for her age, constantly tired, and had trouble concentrating at school. Linda had taken her to the free clinic twice, but the doctors couldn't determine what was wrong. They suggested expensive tests that Linda couldn't afford, leaving the family in a terrifying state of uncertainty. Emma was a bright, imaginative child who found joy in the smallest things despite her circumstances. She loved to sing and would often perform for her grandmother and mother, using a broken hairbrush as a microphone. Her favorite songs were Elvis Presley hits that she had learned from her grandmother's old radio. Ruby Mae had been an Elvis fan since the very beginning and would tell Emma stories about the king of rock and roll. The letter that would change everything started as Emma's attempt to fulfill her grandmother's dying wish. Ruby Mae had confided to Emma that her greatest regret was never seeing Elvis perform in person. "If I could hear Elvis sing just one more time before I go to heaven," Ruby Mae had whispered to Emma one evening, "I would die completely happy." Emma took this wish seriously. With the determination that only a 6-year-old can possess, she decided to write to Elvis herself. Using her crayons and her best kindergarten handwriting, she composed a letter that would move Elvis to tears. "Dear Elvis, my name is Emma Johnson and I am 6 years old. My grandmama Ruby Mae loves you so much, and she is very sick with cancer. She told me her last wish is to hear you sing before she goes to heaven. Mama Linda works very hard, but we don't have money for concerts. I am sick too, but I don't know why. Could you please sing for my grandmama? She taught me all your songs and we sing them together every night. Love, Emma Johnson. P.S. I drew you a picture." Emma somehow managed to get Elvis's address from a magazine at the library and mailed the letter with her allowance money. She included a crayon drawing of Elvis holding a guitar, with 3 stick figures labeled Grandmama, Mama, and Me standing nearby. What Emma didn't know was that her letter would reach Elvis during a period when he was questioning the purpose and meaning of his fame. When Elvis read Emma's letter at Graceland, he was immediately struck by the innocence and sincerity of her request. But as he read further, he realized this wasn't just about a dying grandmother's wish. This was about a family facing multiple crises simultaneously. A child was writing about her grandmother's cancer, her mother's financial struggles, and her own mysterious illness with a maturity that broke Elvis's heart. Elvis called Joe Esposito into his office and handed him the letter. "Joe, we need to find out everything we can about this family and clear my schedule for tomorrow. I'm going to Memphis and I'm going to help these people." Joe read the letter and immediately understood Elvis's reaction. "Elvis, what do you want me to do? Should I arrange for them to come to Graceland?" Elvis shook his head. "No, Joe, they're dealing with too much already. I'm going to their house. Sometimes help needs to come to people where they are." The next morning, Elvis drove through the poorest section of Memphis until he found the address Emma had written in her letter. What he saw when he arrived shocked him even more than the letter had. The house was barely standing, a small wooden structure with a sagging porch, broken windows covered with cardboard, and a yard filled with weeds. When Elvis knocked on the door, Linda Johnson answered, and her reaction was something Elvis would never forget. She looked at him for a moment, as if she couldn't believe her eyes, then called out shakily, "Mama, Emma, you need to come see this. I think I'm hallucinating from exhaustion." Ruby Mae Johnson appeared in the doorway, supported by her walking stick, and when she saw Elvis standing on her porch, tears immediately began streaming down her face. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. "Emma, baby, your letter worked. Elvis Presley is standing on our porch." Emma peeked out from behind her grandmother, and when she saw Elvis, her face lit up with pure joy despite her obvious fatigue and weakness.
Elvis, you got my letter. You came to sing for Grandmama.
Elvis knelt down to Emma's level, and what he saw concerned him deeply. The little girl was clearly malnourished and much smaller than a healthy 6-year-old should be. "Hello, Emma," Elvis said gently. "I got your beautiful letter and your wonderful drawing. I couldn't stop thinking about you and your family. Would it be all right if I came inside and sang some songs for your grandmama?" Emma nodded enthusiastically and took Elvis's hand, leading him into the tiny house. The interior of the Johnson home was clean but sparse. There was almost no furniture, a few chairs, a small table, and a bed where Ruby Mae spent most of her time. The walls were bare except for Emma's crayon drawings and a few family photographs. Despite the obvious poverty, Elvis could feel the love that filled this home. Ruby Mae settled into her chair, and Elvis sat across from her with his guitar. "Mrs. Johnson, Emma tells me you've been an Elvis fan for a long time. What would you like to hear?" Ruby Mae's eyes filled with tears again. "Could you sing How Great Thou Art? It's been my favorite since I first heard you sing it. It gives me peace." Elvis began playing the opening chords, and as he sang the beloved hymn, something magical happened in that tiny house. Ruby Mae's pain seemed to fade away as she listened to her hero singing just for her. Linda sat beside her mother, tears streaming down her face as she watched her mother's joy. And Emma, despite her weakness, sang along softly, knowing all the words. But as Elvis sang, he was also observing. He noticed that there was no food in the kitchen, no heat in the house, and that all 3 generations of women were clearly suffering from more than just Ruby Mae's cancer. This family was in crisis on multiple levels, and Elvis realized that singing a few songs wasn't going to be enough to help them. After finishing How Great Thou Art, Elvis talked with the family for over an hour. He learned that Linda was working herself to exhaustion trying to care for her sick mother and daughter while keeping the family afloat financially. He discovered that Emma's mysterious illness was most likely malnutrition. The family often went without meals so that Ruby Mae could afford her cancer medications. Ruby Mae, with the wisdom that comes from a lifetime of hardship, seemed to understand that Elvis was seeing their situation with fresh eyes. "Mr. Presley," she said quietly, "I know you're a busy man, and just having you here has already made my life complete. But if I could ask one more favor, could you make sure Emma grows up healthy and strong? She's got so much love and music in her heart, just like you do." That request changed everything for Elvis. This wasn't just about fulfilling a dying woman's wish anymore. This was about ensuring that a little girl had the chance to grow up and share her gifts with the world. Elvis made a decision that would affect this family for generations to come. "Mrs. Johnson," Elvis said, "I want you to know that Emma and Linda are going to be taken care of. You don't need to worry about anything except getting better and spending time with your family. I'm going to make sure this family has everything they need." What Elvis did next was unprecedented in his charitable work. He didn't just provide temporary help. He created a comprehensive support system that would sustain the Johnson family for years to come. Working through his business manager and lawyers, Elvis arranged for Ruby Mae to receive the best cancer treatment available, regardless of cost. For Linda, Elvis arranged a job at Graceland's management office, with a salary that would allow her to work reasonable hours while still supporting her family. The job came with full health insurance and a company car, ensuring that Linda could get Emma to any medical appointments she needed. But Elvis's most important intervention was for Emma herself. He arranged for her to see a pediatric specialist who immediately diagnosed her condition as severe malnutrition combined with anemia. With proper nutrition and medical care, Emma began to regain her strength almost immediately. Elvis also made sure the Johnson family had a safe, warm place to live. He purchased a modest but comfortable house in a better neighborhood and had it furnished with everything the family needed. The house included a piano, which Elvis had specially delivered for Emma, recognizing her musical talent and wanting to nurture it. Over the following months, Elvis visited the Johnson family regularly. These visits weren't publicized or photographed. They were simply a man checking on people he had come to consider extended family. During these visits, Elvis would often sit at Emma's piano and teach her new songs, helping her develop her natural musical abilities. Ruby Mae's response to her improved medical care was remarkable. The stress relief that came from knowing her daughter and granddaughter were secure allowed her to focus entirely on her treatment and recovery. While her cancer was too advanced for a cure, the quality care she received extended her life by several months and dramatically improved her quality of life. More importantly, Ruby Mae was able to spend her final months in peace, knowing that she would leave behind a legacy of love, rather than a legacy of struggle. She watched Emma grow stronger and healthier each day, and she saw Linda transform from an exhausted, overwhelmed single mother into a confident woman with a secure future. Emma's recovery was nothing short of miraculous. With proper nutrition, medical care, and the stability that came from knowing her family was secure, she blossomed into a vibrant, talented child. Her musical abilities flourished under Elvis's guidance, and she began composing her own simple songs about family, love, and gratitude. The relationship between Elvis and the Johnson family deepened over time. Emma began to think of Elvis as an honorary grandfather, and Elvis genuinely loved spending time with the bright, creative little girl who had first reached out to him with crayons and hope. When Ruby Mae passed away peacefully in her sleep 8 months after Elvis's first visit, she died knowing that her family's future was secure. Her final words to Elvis were, "Thank you for giving my girls a chance at happiness. You've been an angel in our lives." At Ruby Mae's funeral, Elvis sang "How Great Thou Art" once more, this time as a goodbye to a woman who had taught him important lessons about dignity, love, and the strength that comes from family bonds. The entire Memphis community was amazed to see Elvis Presley serving as an honorary pallbearer for an unknown woman, but those who knew the story understood the deep connection he had formed with the Johnson family. After Ruby Mae's death, Elvis continued to be a presence in Emma and Linda's lives. He helped Emma apply for music scholarships as she got older, and he made sure Linda had opportunities for career advancement within his organization. But more importantly, he provided them with something money couldn't buy, a sense of security and belonging that allowed both mother and daughter to thrive. Emma Johnson grew up to become a music teacher, inspired by Elvis's example of using music to heal and connect with others. She often told her students about the day Elvis Presley knocked on her door and changed her family's entire future. She specialized in working with children from disadvantaged backgrounds, understanding firsthand how music could provide hope and healing during difficult times. Linda Johnson became one of Graceland's most trusted employees, eventually managing much of Elvis's charitable work. She had a unique understanding of what it meant to be on the receiving end of Elvis's generosity, and she used that perspective to help Elvis identify other families and individuals who could benefit from his help. The Johnson family story became a template for how Elvis approached charitable work for the rest of his life. Rather than just providing temporary financial assistance, he began to create comprehensive support systems that addressed multiple needs simultaneously. He learned that true help meant looking at the whole picture, not just the immediate crisis, but the underlying factors that created ongoing vulnerability. Years later, when Emma was in college studying music education, she wrote a letter to Elvis that mirrored the crayon letter she had sent as a 6-year-old. In it, she thanked him not just for saving her family's lives, but for teaching her that success and talent came with the responsibility to help others. "Dear Elvis," she wrote, "you taught me that music isn't just about entertainment, it's about connection, healing, and love. You showed me that when we have been blessed with gifts, whether it's musical talent or financial resources, our job is to use those gifts to lift up others. I promise to spend my life teaching children that they matter, that they have value, and that music can help them through any difficult time." The 3-generation rescue became one of Elvis's most cherished charitable accomplishments, not because of the money involved, but because of the relationships it created and the long-term impact it had. He had saved not just 3 lives, but had ensured that Emma would grow up with the tools and opportunities to help countless other children throughout her career. In 1977, when Elvis passed away, Emma and Linda were among the mourners at Graceland. Emma, now 9 years old and healthy, sang "How Great Thou Art" at a private memorial service, her clear, strong voice a testament to the life Elvis had made possible for her. Linda stood beside her daughter, knowing that everything good in their lives could be traced back to a 6-year-old's crayon letter and a superstar's decision to respond with his heart. The house Elvis had bought for the Johnson family remained their home for decades. Linda still lives there today, and the piano Elvis gave to Emma still sits in the living room, now played by Emma's own children and grandchildren. The family has kept Elvis's involvement in their lives relatively private, sharing the story only with close friends and family members who wonder how a working-class family managed to achieve such stability and success. Today, Emma Johnson Williams is a retired music teacher who spent her career working in inner-city schools, bringing music education to children who might not otherwise have access to it. She established a scholarship fund in Ruby Mae's name that provides music lessons and instruments to children from low-income families. The fund's motto, inspired by Elvis's example, is "Music heals, love transforms, hope endures." The ripple effects of Elvis's intervention in the Johnson family's life continue to this day. Emma's students, inspired by her dedication and the story of how music changed her life, have gone on to become teachers, musicians, and community leaders themselves. Many of them have established their own programs to help disadvantaged children, creating a network of support that traces its origins back to a crayon letter and one man's decision to respond with extraordinary generosity. The story of Elvis and the 3 generations of Johnson women reminds us that sometimes the most profound changes happen not on stage or in front of cameras, but in the quiet moments when someone with power chooses to use it to lift up those who are struggling. It shows us that true charity isn't just about giving money, it's about seeing the whole person, understanding their complete situation, and providing support that addresses not just immediate needs but long-term potential. Elvis could have simply sent money or arranged for the family to attend one of his concerts. Instead, he chose to become personally involved in their lives, creating relationships that enriched both his life and theirs. He learned that the most meaningful experiences in life often come not from what we achieve for ourselves, but from what we make possible for others. The 3-generation rescue story also demonstrates the power of a child's innocent faith. Emma's decision to write to Elvis with crayons and hope set in motion a chain of events that changed not just her family's future, but also influenced how Elvis thought about his responsibility to help others. Sometimes the most important letters we receive are written by small hands with big hearts. If this incredible story of one letter changing 3 generations moved you, make sure to subscribe and hit that thumbs up button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear about the power of reaching out for help and the importance of responding with compassion. Have you ever written a letter that changed your life? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to ring that notification bell for more amazing stories about the moments that reveal the best of human nature. The Johnson family's transformation became a case study that Elvis's charitable organization would reference for years to come. The comprehensive approach that Elvis took with their situation, addressing immediate medical needs, long-term financial stability, housing security, and educational opportunities, became the template for how Elvis approached all of his major charitable interventions from that point forward. Dr. Margaret Stevens, the pediatric specialist who first diagnosed Emma's malnutrition, later wrote about the case in medical journals, noting that Elvis's intervention demonstrated the crucial connection between poverty and childhood health issues. The Elvis Foundation approach, as it came to be known in charitable circles, showed that effective help required addressing root causes rather than just symptoms. The house that Elvis purchased for the Johnson family became more than just a home, it became a symbol of hope for the entire neighborhood. Other families in the area saw that positive change was possible, and several community improvement initiatives began as a result. Local churches and community organizations started working together more effectively, inspired by the example of comprehensive help that they had witnessed. Emma's piano lessons with Elvis became legendary among those who knew the family. Elvis would arrive unannounced on weekend afternoons, often bringing sheet music for new songs he wanted to teach her. During these sessions, Elvis discovered that Emma had an exceptional gift for improvisation and composition. By the time she was 8 years old, she was writing simple but beautiful melodies that impressed even Elvis's professional musician friends. One of the most touching aspects of Elvis's relationship with the Johnson family was how he included them in his own family traditions. During the last Christmas of Ruby Mae's life, Elvis invited the Johnson family to Graceland for Christmas dinner. Emma later described this as one of the most magical experiences of her childhood, not because of the luxury, but because of how naturally Elvis made them feel like they belonged. Linda Johnson's transition from struggling single mother to respected professional was remarkable to witness. The job at Graceland's management office not only provided financial stability, but also allowed her to develop skills and confidence she never knew she possessed. Within 2 years, she was managing several of Elvis's charitable programs and had become one of his most trusted advisors on matters involving families in crisis. The education fund that Elvis established for Emma went far beyond what she needed for her own schooling. Elvis created a comprehensive scholarship program that would support Emma through graduate school if she chose, but also included provisions for her to help other children in similar situations. The fund became a model for how to create sustainable, long-term educational support. Ruby Mae's influence on Elvis during her final months was profound and unexpected. Despite her own suffering, she possessed a wisdom and perspective that helped Elvis understand his role differently. She often told him, "Mr. Elvis, you've been given a gift that goes beyond music. You have the gift of seeing people's hearts and knowing how to heal them." During one of their last conversations, Ruby Mae shared with Elvis her philosophy about legacy. "I won't be remembered by history books," she told him, "but I'll live on through Emma and Linda, and now through the kindness you've shown us. That's how real change happens, one family at a time, one generation at a time." The medical care that Elvis arranged for Ruby Mae allowed her to experience several good days that wouldn't have been possible otherwise. During these times, she was able to share family stories with Emma, teach her granddaughter traditional recipes, and pass on the wisdom that had sustained her through decades of hardship. These conversations became treasured memories that Emma carried throughout her life. Emma's creative talents flourished under Elvis's encouragement in ways that surprised everyone. She began writing songs about her experiences, songs about missing her grandmother, about being grateful for second chances, and about the power of music to heal emotional pain. Elvis was so impressed by her compositions that he recorded several of them, keeping the recordings as personal mementos. The neighborhood where the Johnson family's new house was located became something of a pilgrimage site for people who had heard about Elvis's generosity. The family was often approached by strangers asking for help or wanting to share their own stories of struggle. Linda handled these situations with grace, often referring people to the charitable organizations that Elvis supported. Elvis's approach to helping the Johnson family influenced other celebrities and wealthy individuals who learned about the story. The concept of providing comprehensive, long-term support rather than one-time donations began to gain traction among philanthropists who wanted to create lasting change rather than temporary relief. The emotional impact of saving 3 generations simultaneously had a profound effect on Elvis's own perspective about mortality and legacy. Seeing Ruby Mae face death with dignity while knowing her family would be secure helped Elvis think differently about his own life and what he wanted to leave behind. He began focusing more on actions that would have lasting impact rather than immediate gratification. Emma's development as a musician under Elvis's guidance became a source of great pride for him. He would often tell close friends that teaching Emma was one of the most rewarding experiences of his career. "That little girl reminds me why I fell in love with music in the first place," he said. "She sings with her whole heart, and she understands that music is about connecting with people." The annual tradition that developed of Elvis visiting the Johnson family on Emma's birthday became one of the highlights of his year. These visits were always private and unannounced, with Elvis arriving with cake, presents, and his guitar. Emma later said that these birthdays taught her that the most valuable gifts weren't expensive items, but time and attention from someone who cared. Linda Johnson's role in Elvis's charitable work expanded significantly as her skills and confidence grew. She became his primary advisor on family-related charitable cases, using her own experience of poverty and struggle to help identify which families would benefit most from comprehensive support. Her insights helped Elvis's charitable work become more effective and impactful. The documentation of the Johnson family's progress became a valuable resource for social workers and charitable organizations. Elvis's team carefully tracked the family's development over the years, creating a detailed case study that demonstrated the long-term benefits of comprehensive intervention. This documentation helped other organizations develop more effective approaches to family assistance. Emma's academic performance improved dramatically once her health and family stability were secured. She went from being a struggling student who often missed school due to illness and family crises to becoming one of the top students in her class. Her teachers noted that her creativity and musical talents enhanced her performance in all subjects. The ripple effects of Elvis's intervention extended to Emma's future classmates and students. As she grew older and became more confident in sharing her story, she inspired other children who were facing difficult circumstances. Her example showed them that situations could change and that reaching out for help was a sign of strength, not weakness. The music therapy techniques that Elvis intuitively used with the Johnson family became subjects of academic study. Researchers who learned about his approach, using music to create emotional connection, provide comfort, and build confidence, began incorporating similar methods into formal therapy programs. Ruby Mae's funeral became a community event that demonstrated how one family's story had touched an entire neighborhood. Elvis's presence at the service, along with the obvious love and respect he had for Ruby Mae, helped break down some of the barriers between different social and economic classes in Memphis. The trust fund that Elvis established for Emma's future included provisions for her to support other children's musical education. As an adult, Emma used these funds to purchase instruments for school music programs and to provide private lessons for talented children whose families couldn't afford them. Linda Johnson's professional growth continued throughout her career at Graceland. She eventually became the director of the Elvis Presley Foundation's Family Services Division, a position she held until her retirement. Her work helped hundreds of families over the years, and she often said that her own experience of receiving help made her a better helper to others. The house that Elvis purchased for the Johnson family became a multi-generational home. Emma raised her own children there, and Linda lived there until her death in 2018 at the age of 79. The house now belongs to Emma's children, who have maintained it as a tribute to both Elvis's generosity and their family's journey from poverty to stability. The piano that Elvis gave to Emma has been played by 4 generations of the Johnson family. Emma's children and grandchildren have all learned to play on the same instrument, and many of them have gone on to pursue musical careers. The piano bears a small plaque that reads, "Music heals, love transforms, hope endures," the motto that became central to Emma's life philosophy. The scholarship program that grew out of Elvis's initial help to Emma has provided educational support to over 200 children since its establishment. Many of these scholarship recipients have become teachers, social workers, and community leaders themselves, continuing the cycle of giving back that Elvis initiated with one crayon letter. Modern social workers and charitable organizations still study the Johnson family case as an example of how to provide effective, comprehensive assistance to families in crisis. The Elvis model of charitable giving, addressing multiple needs simultaneously and providing long-term support rather than temporary relief, has become a recognized best practice in the field of family services. Emma Johnson Williams's retirement from teaching in 2019 was marked by tributes from hundreds of former students who credited her with changing their lives through music and encouragement. Many of these students had come from backgrounds similar to Emma's own childhood, and her story of transformation gave them hope that their circumstances could also change. The legacy of one small girl's crayon letter continues to inspire people around the world. The Johnson family story has been shared in books, documentaries, and academic papers as an example of how individual acts of kindness can create generational change. It demonstrates that sometimes the most important communications are the simplest ones, written with hope and sent with faith that someone will care enough to respond.